The 90s box office was a bloodbath, where studio executives measured success in opening weekends and audience demographics, leaving no room for films that dared to be patient, subtle, or strange. These are the masterpieces that bombed on arrival, the ones that critics loved but audiences ignored, disappearing into video store obscurity before quietly reshaping entire careers and proving that commercial failure doesn't determine cultural value. Lone Star launched Chris Cooper from character actor to leading man through a performance so haunted, it changed his physical presence on set. Sheriff Sam Deeds investigates a decades-old murder in a Texas border town, uncovering a skeleton that points to his legendary father while reconnecting with his high school sweetheart in a story that peels back layers of racial tension and family secrets. Cooper isolated himself from the cast and crew during the Eagle Pass shoot to embody the character's profound loneliness, becoming so deeply entrenched in the internal conflict that director John Sayles noted he appeared genuinely burdened and exhausted. Matthew McConaughey was hired for just 2 weeks to play the mythic father in flashbacks, paid a fraction of his later salaries, but his magnetic performance in those brief scenes served as the bridge between his indie roots and his future as an A-lister. The $3 million production grossed over $12 million domestically, a nearly 400% return that allowed Sayles to remain outside the studio system for decades, while Cooper's breakthrough turned a film about confronting the past into evidence that patient storytelling could still find an audience.
How about you lay that shield on this table and vanish before you end up dead or in jail?
The Spanish Prisoner turned Steve Martin into a calculating predator who stripped away every comedic instinct, terrifying his co-stars in the process and redefining his entire career. Corporate engineer Joe Ross invents a valuable mathematical process but becomes paranoid. His boss will cheat him, finding himself framed for murder by Jimmy Dell, a wealthy stranger who turns out to be the architect of an elaborate con. Martin adopted a rigorous, cold persona on set, refusing to break character or engage in his usual comedic antics, describing the experience as terrifying because he had to abandon all his reliable comedic crutches to play a human void. Campbell Scott admitted in later retrospectives that he found Martin genuinely intimidating to work with, creating an atmosphere of real unease that mirrored the film's themes of constant deception. The $10 million production was plagued by David Mamet's secretive writing process, with the cast kept in the dark about the film's final twists to ensure their performances remained authentically confused. The film grossed $13 million worldwide, securing Mamet's status as a profitable auteur while making audiences forget Martin was ever funny. Gattaca stands as the ultimate box office disaster that rewrote science fiction history, a $36 million film about genetic destiny that was dead on arrival at theaters, but eventually screened in biology classes worldwide. In a future where DNA determines fate, Vincent Freeman is an invalid who refuses to accept his menial labor destiny, assuming the identity of paralyzed valid Jerome Morrow to infiltrate the elite Gattaca Aerospace Corporation.
Keep in mind, this child is still you. Simply the best of you.
Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman began a whirlwind romance during the production's late-night shoots, with a high-concept intellectual nature creating a unique bond between actors playing characters constantly hiding their true selves, leading to their 1998 marriage that ended in a high-profile 2005 divorce. The film grossed a dismal $4 million in its opening weekend, finishing its domestic run with only $12 million against its substantial budget, a financial carnage so severe it nearly ended the filmmaker's career in its infancy before he could make another film. Jude Law's performance as the embittered, paralyzed Jerome launched his American career but came at significant physical cost, spending weeks training with wheelchair experts and remaining seated for hours, becoming increasingly withdrawn during filming. Despite the studio losing tens of millions, the film was later named by NASA as the most realistic science fiction film ever made, demonstrating that a valid status isn't determined by opening weekend numbers. The Rocketeer arrived at Jennifer Connelly's crossroads, a 19-year-old actress who felt hijacked by a career she hadn't chosen, entering the Disney tentpole to prove she could be a sophisticated leading lady while pursuing academic life at Yale. Cocky stunt pilot Cliff Suckord discovers a high-tech jetpack in 1938 Los Angeles and becomes the Rocketeer, fighting gangsters, the FBI, and a suave Hollywood actor who's secretly a Nazi agent. Connolly took the role to break away from the child star stigma of Labyrinth, treating acting as a job because she felt emotionally underdeveloped by the industry. And while she fell into a 5-year relationship with co-star Billy Campbell during the shoot, the film's box office failure left her in professional limbo. Hollywood executives branded her disappointing following the release, with the $40 million production grossing only $46 million domestically in what became Disney chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg's famous internal memo warning against rising costs. The fallout sent Connolly back into the indie world for nearly a decade, where she reinvented herself before winning her Oscar for A Beautiful Mind in 2001. The Quick and the Dead made history when Sharon Stone literally paid Leonardo DiCaprio's salary out of her own pocket after the studio refused to hire an unproven indie actor. Mysterious gunslinger called The Lady enters a deadly quick-draw tournament in the lawless town of Redemption, ruled by ruthless outlaw John Herod, seeking revenge for the man who destroyed her family. TriStar Pictures was adamant about casting Matt Damon or Sam Rockwell as the kid and flat-out refused to pay for DiCaprio, but Stone was so moved by his audition, where he was the only actor to break down in tears, that she told the studio she would write the check for his fee herself. The consequence was legendary, as DiCaprio's performance became a highlight, and just 2 years later he would become the biggest star in the world with Titanic. The $32 million production clawed back only $18 million at the domestic box office, with Stone fighting the studio to give Gene Hackman top billing out of respect, while executives insisted she was the newly minted star following Basic Instinct. The experience shattered Stone's friendship with director Sam Raimi, whom she had personally fought to hire, leading her to recently slam him for abandoning her after she gave him his first big-budget opportunity. To Die For turned into Nicole Kidman's $3 million gamble to escape being known as Tom Cruise's wife, accepting a massive pay cut to play a monstrous small-town girl who manipulates teenagers into murdering her husband. Suzanne Stone is obsessed with television fame, believing you aren't anybody in America unless you're on TV, using her position at a local cable station to seduce troubled high schoolers into eliminating her supportive husband who wants her to give up her weather girl job.
This is a dream I have had all my life. I would do anything to get this job, anything.
Kidman accepted $2 million after Meg Ryan turned down $5 million because the character was too dark for her America's Sweetheart brand, staying in her Stepford wife on acid persona throughout the shoot and treating young Joaquin Phoenix and Casey Affleck with calculated predatory distance. Director Gus Van Sant cast Phoenix in his high-profile return to Hollywood after his brother River's tragic death in 1993, sensing the young actor's grief and raw vulnerability were perfect for the manipulated teenager, creating an emotionally charged production where crew members noted Phoenix's presence was a constant reminder of River. The $20 million dark comedy grossed over $41 million worldwide, winning Kidman a Golden Globe and fundamentally shifting her trajectory from celebrity spouse to prestige powerhouse, while accurately predicting the modern era of fame at any cost influencer culture. Breakdown revealed that Kurt Russell's greatest physical challenge wasn't stunts, but playing pure panic for 12 hours a day, discovering that anxiety could break a human body in ways action never could. Jeff and Amy Taylor's cross-country drive turns into a nightmare when their car breaks down in the desert and Amy vanishes after accepting help from a trucker who later claims he's never seen her. Russell came to the production team mid-shoot, complaining of mysterious chronic body aches worse than anything he'd experienced on more physically demanding sets, eventually realizing the pain wasn't from injury but from the character's anxiety, his muscles remaining perpetually constricted from maintaining total panic. The mental strain was so intense that Russell spent weekends in isolation on a night schedule to keep his nervous system frayed, creating an atmosphere where crew members felt uncomfortable around him because he stayed in high-alert agitation even between takes. The legendary J.T. Walsh brought terrifying mundane villainy to life as kidnapper Red Bar, but the production was overshadowed by tragedy when Walsh died of a heart attack at 54 shortly after the film's success, turning the $36 million thriller that grossed $50 million into Russell's tribute to character actors who could anchor tension as effectively as elaborate set pieces. Sarah Polley was so desperate to break away from her image as Canada's sweetheart that she almost torpedoed her own career to play a drug-dealing cashier in Go. At the time, Polley was a massive star in Canada for her work on Road to Avonlea, but she was privately disillusioned with mainstream fame. Director Doug Liman had to fight to convince her to take the role of Rana, and she initially turned it down before finally agreeing after seeing his previous work. The production became a legal nightmare because Polley had a record of arrests from political protests in Canada, which created massive complications with her U.S. work visa. According to interviews with Lyman, the production had to navigate intense border scrutiny just to get her on set. The film follows Rana, a cashier one paycheck away from eviction who tries to broker a drug deal that spirals into chaos, then restarts to follow her co-worker Simon's disastrous Vegas trip. Despite strong reviews and a packed Sundance premiere, the film opened at number 6 with only $4.7 million and ended its domestic run with just $16.8 million against a $20 million budget. The financial disappointment turned it into a cult classic on DVD and served as the catalyst for Polley to quit acting. She famously turned down a massive offer to star in The Bourne Identity, choosing instead to become a director and eventually winning an Academy Award. Can't Hardly Wait nearly broke Jennifer Love Hewitt when she filmed Party of Five during the day and the movie all night on zero sleep. Graduation night at Huntington Hill High brings everyone to the party of the year, where sensitive writer Preston Myers has one final shot to deliver a heartfelt letter to Amanda Beckett, the it girl just dumped by an arrogant jock. Jennifer would arrive on set at 6 p.m. and work until dawn, frequently functioning on no sleep until co-star Melissa Joan Hart offered her B12 vitamins to stay awake, leading Hewitt to become convinced the vitamins were illegal drugs. The viral consequence was Hewitt seeing an owl in a tree and shouting, "See, I'm high now, there isn't really an owl," only for the crew to confirm the owl was real, creating a set-wide laughing fit that temporarily shut down production and became one of the most repeated stories from the shoot. Columbia Pictures was so terrified of an R rating that they spent over $100,000 on CGI to digitally remove alcohol from scenes, with the most expensive effect being making a kid look like he was smiling instead of chugging beer. The $10 million production grossed $25 million, though Preston's actor famously refused to play the nerdy sidekick and staged a power play to secure the romantic lead, eventually helping the film rank number 44 on Entertainment Weekly's Best High School Movies list. LA Story was Steve Martin's profound romantic tribute to his then-wife, the British actress who starred opposite him, that transformed into a painful artifact when their marriage dissolved 3 years after release. Wacky, roller-skating weatherman Harris Telemacher feels spiritually stagnant until an enchanted freeway sign begins giving him cryptic life advice, guiding him towards Sarah, a British journalist who represents everything the vapid Los Angeles socialite scene is not. Martin poured his most vulnerable feelings into the script to capture the magic of their real-life union, but the consequence was a devastating 1994 divorce that Martin recently admitted broke his heart, triggering a complete career shift away from broad physical comedy toward more cerebral, melancholic writing. Sarah Jessica Parker was so intimidated, performing a romantic scene with Steve Martin on her first day, that her hands visibly shook during takes, though Martin's kindness helped her settle into a role that would launch her as a romantic comedy leading lady. The $25 million satire grossed $28 million domestically, launching the yuppie horror genre with its scathing takedown of Los Angeles culture, particularly the lunch scene where socialites order increasingly absurd coffee, predicting everything from influencer obsession to modern health food craze.